Hello, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Adele Ashley, and I am super excited to be diving into this edition of books I read because of TikTok, because we're going to talk about Off Campus by Elle Kennedy and the entire series. It's 5 books. I quite honestly read these books 3, maybe 4 years ago. Absolutely loved every single last one of them. I shouldn't say that. I like the majority of them. I think the series as a whole is so good. There's certain ones that I will turn back to for comfort. Like many, I have like my favorite book boyfriend from the series who I am like, I will do anything for this man. I love him so much. Like, does he exist in real life? Yeah, the Off-Campus series like is pretty big. I think recently Elle Kennedy even announced that it is going to be an Amazon TV series, I believe. So it's getting like the Summer I Turned Pretty treatment, essentially, to it, which like I'm excited for. I'm going to be hook, line, and sinker in it, watching. I am seated. And I also am really just kind of like thinking back. I think this is kind of the story, or these books are the ones that kind of like solidified my love of sports romance. I was like, oh, I like it. I don't like it. I don't know. And then I read Off Campus and I was like, I love these books. I love this kind of genre, or this subgenre, I guess you could say, in romance. And it's hockey based. I don't like hockey, but give me a hockey romance and I will eat it up. But all that to say, today we are discussing the Off Campus series by Elle Kennedy. The first book in the series is The Deal. And it follows, the synopsis is, Hannah Wells might be confident, but she's carting around a full set of baggage when it comes to sex and seduction. If she wants to get her crush's attention, she'll have to step out of her comfort zone, even if it means tutoring the annoying, childish, cocky captain of the hockey team, Garrett Graham, in exchange for a public pretend date. But when one unexpected kiss leads to the wildest sex of their life, it doesn't take long for Garrett to realize that pretend isn't going to cut it. So, first book in the series, first book that I read, I loved it. Hannah is super sweet. I love how Garrett is with her. He's so kind. He's so like, you deserve better. You deserve the world. He is kind of like great. He seems cocky. He seems a little bit childish. There's so much more like deep stuff happening with Garrett that makes like him be so the way he is, I guess I should say. They have their whole like, we're going to pretend dating thing. She is inexperienced. She doesn't know what's going on. He's like, you tutor me in class, I will tutor you in love. It's good. You had all the tropes along the way. They watched like a TV show together. They're definitely like friends, but not friends. Like friends who you knew were never going to just be friends. It's the best way to describe it. Their relationship is like so sweet, so perfect. I loved it. The whole thing, the reason why it's called Off Campus is because these boys in the hockey team are actually not living on campus. They're living off campus in this house, and they're all sharing it together, which is kind of like what the title comes from. So we do get to see a lot of like the town that they're living in. We hear a lot about like the community that the story is set in, and it very much is like, I wouldn't say it's its own character, like how New York is its own character to Gossip Girl or Sex and the City, but it is its own character in the sense that like it's such an immersive community and so much happens in it that like you get to know like, oh yeah, they're going to go to this bakery or this diner that they always go to, or the house is over here, it's the hockey boys' house and stuff like that. So yeah, The Deal, I really enjoyed it. It was good. This is actually not the book that I reread quite often. It's actually the third book in the series, but I just think it's like a good introduction to the series. It's really fun. I know a lot of people think like Garrett Graham is like number one for them. The Deal is number one. It's just not my number one. But it was good enough to keep me reading the rest of the series. After that is The Mistake, which follows the college hockey star John Logan, whose life is a parade of parties and hookups, but behind his killer grins, he hides growing despair about the dead-end road he'll be forced to walk after graduation. A sexy encounter with freshman Grace Ivers is just the distraction he needs, but when a thoughtless mistake pushes her away, Logan plans to spend his final year proving to her that he's worth a second chance. But this time around, she'll be the one in the driver's seat, and she plans on driving him wild. So the mistake, it's very deep. It's kind of alluded to a lot in the synopsis, and I won't ruin it, but like John has so much going on in his life that like he is great at what he does, but the entire time he's like, I'm not going to be doing this. Like, hockey's not for me. This is what my life is going to be like afterwards. And everyone around him's like, your life is going to be great. Like, you could do all these things. And he's like, no, I'm going home. I will be living at home and my life is going to be pretty dead end. It's sad. You see Grace kind of like bring him out of his shell. You see Grace kind of like really do her best to make sure that they are like good and solid. But yeah, it's just, I love how she like takes back control of everything else and kind of like really puts him in his place. The story does fall over the span of like almost like 2 years, because the first few chapters is them meeting and they're in their freshman year, and then they come back when she's in her sophomore year. So it is like the following year that they kind of the majority of the story happens in, which is kind of nice because you also see it in the terms of like everything that's happening with Garrett in year one. It kind of like bleeds into year two a little bit. So the stories are very like progressive to a certain degree. They do start to overlap a little bit later on, but they're very progressive and move the timeline along as opposed to be very like, this is all happening in 1 year. The mistake, again, it was just kind of there for me. If I need to, I enjoyed it. Don't think I've ever reread The Mistake, to be totally honest. It was just kind of like meh for me, but I enjoyed it. I also read the score, and like the score has one of my favorite couples in it. So the score follows Allie and Dean. And essentially wild rebound sex is, after a breakup, is definitely not the solution to any of Allie Hayes' problems. But gorgeous hockey star Dean De Laurentiis is impossible to resist. So she's like, we're just going to do it once, because even if her future is uncertain, it sure as hell won't include the king of one-night stands. And Dean has never met a woman who's immune to his charms until Allie. For one night, the feisty blonde rocked his entire world, and now she wants to just be friends. Nope, it's not over until he says it's over. So I am obsessed with Dean and Allie. They are like, if I had to rate a number one like book or couple in this series, it would be Dean and Allie. I love them so deeply. Dean is hilarious. Dean, his life, his whole thing is that he's like this rich boy living in this house with everyone else. Like he is like obscenely rich. Allie decidedly is not. I love how he goes after her. There's a scene where Allie is like absolutely bawling in her apartment. And I should say, Allie is Hannah from book one's best friend and roommate. So they live together on campus. So there's this moment where she is like, Allie is just absolutely like bawling her eyes out. She's gone through a rough breakout. The guy has come over to their house. He's like yelled at her, told her a lot of stuff. Basically been like an ass to her. And Garrett tells him to like leave. And Hannah is trying to comfort Allie. And she's like, I need you to call Dean. And no, at this point, no one knows that the two of them have like any sort of relationship. Like they've been very like quiet about the whole thing. She hides. It's like a secret relationship while they like work each other out of their systems. And Allie is very much like, I need you to call Dean. And there's this moment where Hannah's like, De Laurentiis? Like, you want me to call Dean? And Garrett's like, who? And she's like still bawling. He comes over and the guys are just like, why did you call him? And he's like, move out of my way. And then opens the door and is like, oh my God, like, are you okay? And baby, like, what's going on? And it's just perfect. Like, describing it does not do it justice. It's written to perfection. Like, it's so good. And the thing is, like, Dean and Allie, their relationship kind of like builds. Like, it's very clearly like built on mutual trust, mutual love for each other, and like slowly like builds up from there, as opposed to it's not insta love. They very much like grapple with the fact that they think that they're not good enough for each other. You start to meet like Dean's family. You meet some of their like other friends as well. We get introduced to Jake Connolly in this book as well. Like, really introduced to Jake in this book. It's just great. If you can't tell, it's my favorite book in the Off-Campus series. And then the final book is The Goal. And The Goal follows Sabrina James, who is a college senior. She has her whole life planned out. She's going to graduate from college, kick butt in law school, and land a high-paying job at a cutthroat firm. Her path to escaping her shameful past certainly doesn't include a gorgeous hockey player who believes in love at first sight. One night of sizzling heat and surprising tenderness is all she's willing to give John Tucker, but sometimes one night is all it takes for your entire life to change. So I didn't love this book. I didn't like it while I was reading it. I think it was still like a 3-star read for me. Like, it was overall good, but it would be like, it was just not, I was not as engaged with the story as I was with the previous 3 in the series. And I really do think it's because I don't necessarily love the premise of it. I didn't really like John as a character. I didn't like Sabrina as a character. And I don't like, it's the whole thing is based on it's a pregnancy, which forces them to be together. And I don't really love stories where people are like together just because one of them is pregnant. It's just not for me. And I know like some people love like the whole like accidental pregnancy trope, but like it's just not my favorite. So for me, because the story was so heavily based on the fact that they were having a kid, and the relationship was stemming from the fact that they were having a kid, I was not really that like engaged or caring about any part of the story throughout, because I kept being like, well, you guys are just together because she's having a kid. Yeah, that's kind of like where I fell with that. I also just found Sabrina a little bit insufferable. Like, she was kind of annoying, to be totally honest. And I know she had a lot of stuff, like a lot of backstories built into stuff with her, but she just was not great as a person. So yeah, there's that. And then the final book, which came out like years later, is The Legacy, which follows, it's like 4 separate stories about the 4 couples and 3 years of real life after graduation. So they're having a wedding, a proposal, an elopement, and a surprise pregnancy. Going into, you don't really know which one is which. I found it kind of like, it was like a full-length novel, but it also felt a little bit more like a novella. I didn't reread it in preparation for this video, but I can honestly tell you that the only thing I remember from this book is that there was like that creepy doll that they were moving from they had a Chucky doll that they were moving from place to place, or like pranking each other with. You get a little bit of an update about like what's going on in their lives, where they're going, like stuff like that. We do get the update that like most of the boys, 3 of them, have gone like into pro hockey, which is like part of the story anyway, like it's part of their synopsis anyways, but we know that they're like pro hockey players. We know that they are having children or going to have children. Yeah, it's just kind of like there. It's a nice synopsis to the story, but I'm not as connected as I am to the others. If I had to rate the 5 books in terms of like 1 to 5, in terms of like how I feel about them, it should be no surprise, but the score is number 1 for me. Number 2 very easily would be The Deal. Number 3 is The Mistake. Number 4 is The Legacy, so that like wrap up book number 5. And then my final one is The Goal, which again, not really a surprise. Because yeah, I wasn't like in love with the books. But that being said, I love the Off-Campus series. Don't know why I did that. Like, what was this? But that being said, I love the Off-Campus series by Elle Kennedy. It's one that I actually own all I actually own the books for it as well, because I have gone back and read it and stuff like that. Believe they are all on Kindle Unlimited as well and everything else. But Off Campus by Elle Kennedy is one of the books that I kind of turn to and love in general. And also, I believe she's Canadian. So yay for Canadian authors as well. So yeah, so that is kind of another edition of Books I Read Because of TikTok, the wild off-campus edition. Thank you so much for watching. I will chat with you guys later. Until next time, have a great day.